Hi there, it's Jennifer and welcome back to another video. I'm really excited about today's technique for a few reasons. First of all, this technique will give you a faux watercolor look. I love the look of watercolor, but I'm not good at doing watercolor. So this stamping technique will give you that look without much effort. Also, if you have any stamp layering sets, but not many colors of inks to use them with, today's technique will be great for that because you don't need a bunch of ink pads. I also have some heat embossing tricks and tips along the way, so I'm hoping that you find something in this video that inspires you. Let's go ahead and start with the sunflower cards. I'm using two types of watercolor paper today, just for a little variety. The first is the Hero Arts watercolor paper. This is unique because it is a handmade watercolor paper. It's nice and thick at 140 pound weight, and it's 100% recycled. And it is a good bright white. I'm also using the Tim Holtz watercolor paper, which you see on the right there. That's another great bright white watercolor paper. I'm not really as much concerned about the results in the end as I am how white the paper is. I really like white watercolor paper with a beautiful texture to it. Now I'm also going to be using the new Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit. This is the Hero Kit for September, and it is a great one. You know that I'm a big fan of the Hero Arts kits because they contain so much product at a very, very low price. It's definitely the best value out there. And I'm really excited about the stamp set in this kit because it has layering images to create a sunflower and a pumpkin all in one set. So here's this stamp set. It's a 6x8 stamp set, so the images are a good size. I like that it has the layering images for the sunflower and the pumpkin, and also a lot of great sentiments. So I'll be using this set today. I'm using my Misty stamping tool today simply because I'm making multiple cards at once, but you can definitely do this with a regular acrylic block. Now I'm putting the most solid images of the leaves and the sunflower into my Misty, and I'm going to color them with Tombow markers. You can use inks to do this technique, but markers, a lot of us already have any kind of water-based marker, and they're great for inking up stamps. So what I'm doing today is I am coloring the marker directly onto the clean stamp. I like to use the side of the brush tip. I find that's an easy way to ink up the stamp, and you don't damage your brush tip at all by doing this. So I did a light yellow for the flower and a light green for the leaves. You really don't have to color it on perfectly. It doesn't matter at all because we're going to mist this with water. So I'm putting up a piece of paper to block my clean paper over on the left, and I'm misting this about 4 times from 2 feet above with some water. Now I'm going to stamp that onto my watercolor paper. Notice that I kind of hang out there for a while. I let that color and water absorb into the paper a bit before I open it up, and you get this beautiful watercolor look. The more water you spray onto your stamp, the more watercolory it will look. The less water you spray on your stamp, the more solid it will look. So I try to go in the middle with 3 to 5 spritzes per image. I do find it best to spritz from at least 2 feet above. That way you get a mist on your stamp instead of big droplets. So here I'm going to go ahead and stamp this again, and you'll see I kind of hang out there, leave it to absorb a little bit. I found that gives me better results. And you can actually see the watercolor move underneath the stamp as you're pressing down. So I discovered between these two papers that the Tim Holtz watercolor paper is more traditional watercolor paper. The color kind of sits on top and slowly absorbs, and you get bright colors. With the Hero Arts handmade watercolor paper, it seems to absorb quicker, so you get more of a soft look. I think both are beautiful, just two different results. So it's fun to play with different types of paper. So you can see the Tim Holtz watercolor paper here. Okay, now for this second layer. This is really easy to line up. There's like this little nook here in the bottom of the solid image, and you see the nook here on the second image. That's what I need to line up to get this lined up perfectly. But I did find that this stamp layering set is very easy to line up. And especially with this technique, it doesn't have to be perfect because of that watercolor nature. You don't have to line them up perfectly. So this is a good technique for anybody who has trouble lining up layering images. Okay, so this time I'm using a slightly darker ink color, a little bit darker of a yellow and a little bit darker of green. I again am going to mist 3 or 4 times from about 2 feet above and stamp that directly onto the other image. I didn't bother heat setting those other ones. They were pretty much dry since we're not using too much water. And check out how beautiful this layering starts to be. and it gives me the feeling that I did some watercolor, but I didn't have to have any skills at all. This is really easy to do. I do recommend drying off your stamp in between each card. Okay, now I want to show you the comparison between the watercolor paper from Hero Arts and Tim Holtz. So I'm going to freeze this here. On the left, you can see the watercolor paper from Tim Holtz. It's more of crisp color, and the watercolor paper from Hero Arts is on the right, and you get a softer watercolor look. It seems subtle in the video, but in real life I can see a bigger difference, and they're both fun to play with. Okay, so now it's time for the third layer. There is no third layer for the leaves, but there is for the petals of the card. So I'm just looking at my stamped key here to kind of find out how I can line up the next layer, and I can easily find the 2 points that stick out the most and line those up. So here I am with my darkest orange color, and that's going to be that third layer. This is going to be very subtle. If you find that you don't have a good variety between markers to kind of create all these layers, you can mix colors. You could put down a little brown marker and then some orange marker, spritz that and stamp it and get new colors. That's another advantage of using markers. You can kind of create your own by putting multiple colors on your stamp before you stamp it. Now, many different types of markers would work for this. I'm using the Tombow because they come in so many colors, I think almost 100 colors, and I really like these markers. I also find that distress markers work great for this technique too, so try whatever water-based markers you may have because they'll all work great for this. Okay, so I'm just continuing on with this. I'm doing the 2 layers that are for the center of the flower and using like a medium shade and a dark shade of brown. Now for this one, since they are a small area and I'm spraying quite a bit of water on them, I'll get more of a watercolor look in the center here, which I'm okay with. I like having that look of watercolor. I don't want perfectly stamped images for this technique. Check out the middle of this one. I used a lot of water when I stamped that center brown, and so it kind of bled a little bit, but really I think that adds to the feel of this card. Okay, so now I have a bunch of cards ready, and I discovered that I have a little bit of space between my flower and my stem, so I decided to connect it. You could skip this if you wanted to. I just scribbled some of that green marker onto an acrylic block, sprayed it with some water, and now I'm using a paintbrush to connect those. Very quick to do. I just leave it to dry, and nobody will ever know. Okay, so now I want to show you a partial die cutting technique that I use to kind of cut that white down so I could put it on a craft note card. This is really fun to do. So I have the coordinating dies for these stamp images, and I'm going to use them to partially die cut. So I'm starting with the top. I'm putting the coordinating die for the flower right on it, and I'm using a little bit of tape to hold it in place. Now when I run this through my die cut machine, I only want it to cut the top half of the flower. So I'm only putting the cutting plate on the top half of the flower. See how just the top half of the flower is underneath that top cutting plate, and the bottom half of the flower hangs out, so it's not going to cut. Run that through my die cut machine, and you can see that it only cut around the top of the flower. Very easy to do, and you can do this with any die cut machine that you may have. Okay, so I'm going to do the same with the stem, but for this I'm only cutting the bottom of it. So again, I'm only putting the bottom under the cutting plate, leaving the rest of it hanging out, and I'll run that through my die cut machine, and it'll only cut from that edge of the cutting plate down. So this is a great way to just get a different look out of your cards. You can do all kinds of fun things with partial die cutting. And at the end of this video, I'll link to some videos that do show partial die cutting techniques. Now I need to create a straight cut up to where that partial die cutting ends. So I'm using my trimmer to cut right up to where the partial die cutting ends on one side and on the other side. This is very easy to do with this particular trimmer. If you don't have a trimmer like this, you can use a straight edge and a craft knife, and you can easily cut a straight line right up to the partial die cutting on both sides. So this just creates a fun little die cut piece where you have some room to do a stamp sentiment. So now for the note card, I'm using Hero Arts craft paper. I love their craft paper. It's 8.5 by 11, so I created my own note card from that is 4.25 by 5.5 and folds at the top. Now I'm stamping this new Starry Night background stamp with Versamark ink on the craft note card, and this gives a very subtle tone-on-tone look. Now it's time to add our sentiment. If you look at these sentiments, they have a little curve to them, a little arch, which is really fun if you're stamping over the flower or in certain designs. I like that it has the curve, but for this particular one, I want it to be straight. So all I have to do is straighten it out on my acrylic block, and I can use it that way. I like having the option of having it arched or straight. So now I'm stamping the Sending You Sunshine with Versamark ink. Be sure to use your anti-static powder tool, because if that flower is at all wet, it'll want to hold the powder and it would create a mess. So I've stamped and added the embossing powder to the Sending You Sunshine. And next I want to add some tiny little details of gold embossing to the center of our sunflower. So I'm using my Quickie glue pen to create tiny little dots. Then I put the embossing powder on it and I heat set it. And you end up with these beautiful dimensional gold dots in the center of your flower. Using that Quickie glue pen is very easy and a very easy way to add tiny little details of embossing wherever you want it. Now I covered the back of this piece with some double-sided foam tape, and I'm going to add it to the front of our card. Now I wanted to add some more little bit of gold here and there, but I felt like sequins were too distracting. So I added kind of a little splatter of these little glue dots, added some more gold embossing, and now we have what looks like a little splatter of gold embossing around the flower. And I felt that kind of pulled everything together nicely. It actually ends up to be a very simple design with lots of fun techniques included. Now before we move on to anything else, I wanted to show you how all the sunflower cards turned out. They're all a little bit different. For this one I used gold embossing on the note card in the background, and I think that gold is beautiful against the craft. You can see this is a pretty clean cut looking watercolor image because I didn't use much water on the image, so you can change it up and make it as messy or as clean as you want. On this one I used a bit more water, especially on that stem. You can really see how it has more of a watercolor look. So this one uses the Hero Arts watercolor paper. So you get a little bit of a softer look and a more watercolory look. And on this card on the left, I only did the partial die cutting on the top edge. Now for this one, I didn't use the gold embossing on the background. That's the one I just showed you. And you get a nice clean look. I really like background stamps for subtle tone-on-tone looks. I really can't decide which I like better though, the tone-on-tone on the left or the gold embossing on the background on the right. Not sure. Now here is the one where I used a lot of water, so it has more of a watercolor look to it. But I think when you use the clean cut, partial die cutting technique and add those gold details, it really cleans it up and gives nice results. Now for this one, I did partial die cutting a little bit differently. I did it so it cut on the inside edge. But I ended up not really liking this card design as much, so I only did one this way, but it is an option. You can partial die cut any part of a die and get a different look each time. Now I wanted to show you this pumpkin card. I created this pumpkin using the layering images in that same Hero Arts kit stamp set that I showed you before. And I am head over heels, over the moon, giddy in love with this pumpkin. I think it's the perfect pumpkin stamped image. I did the same exact technique that I did on the sunflowers. I used markers and a little bit of water to create this watercolor looking pumpkin. And I also added little details with my Quickie glue pen and gold embossing powder. I think the results are beautiful and you could make a bunch of these pretty quickly. I also gold heat embossed the sentiment from that stamp set right on top of the pumpkin. Now before we go, I wanted to show you some of the add-on products that are available with this kit. I'm really crazy about them, but didn't get a chance to use them all. One is the Luna the Halloween cat. I know a lot of people out there are cat lovers. Now this is more of a Halloween set. However, those cat images could be used for any kind of card. So just because it's Halloween doesn't mean it needs to be used for a Halloween card. Next is the color layering squirrel stamp set. This stamp's a really realistic looking squirrel. It's the sentiments that I think are really fun, like the nuts about you, nut teen compares to you. You can put a little layered acorn in his hand or a leaf. It's really quite a cute set, and I think this one would be fun to play with in the fall. And last but not least, the autumn icons is another that I like from this release. I like how detail outlined they are, and I will be using this one in a video very soon. Okay, if you're interested in the supplies, they're linked below in the YouTube description, but go to my blog for better photos and a comparison of the different techniques. I hope you'll give this a try. It's so much fun to do. In the middle are some more videos that you might like. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so and are interested in future videos, and I hope you come back soon. Have a great week.